Draw your swords, lower your lance, raise your shields, form a line and get the spear wall ready, because there's combat in the old world and it's awfully familiar. So, good people of YouTube, we are finally getting to the meat of the old world's turn, the nitty-gritty, the in-depth look at combat, and it is looking marvellous. In today's issue of the Old World Almanac, we have got Fighting the Good Fight in the combat phase with some beautiful classic Warhammer Fantasy Battle art, and my goodness me, there is much to discuss. There are many familiar elements and there are some very sensible new elements, and they are glorious. But let's take a quick look and start going down this article and breaking down what we see. So, importantly, as with all the other rounds in the old world, each part of the turn, each phase of the round is divided into 4 steps. So we have choose and fight, calculate result, break test, and pursuit. And again, it's all awfully familiar. It is lovely to keep reading about it. And so a few things we learn here. Obviously the rules for combat are always much more complicated than in the current edition of 40k Age of Sigmar, so we're going to need to take a bit of time. They can't put it all up in this article, which is why I think this article has been split into 2, and we'll get the next one next Monday. But in the meantime, there's some good stuff to look at. So you begin your first phase by choosing which combat you want to begin first. Fighting, as it always has, happens in ranks, and only the first rank of a unit. Caveats to that, depending on the weapons. I assume it'll still be spears with an extra rank, and pikes 2 ranks back, but only the front rank can get engaged. And this is the first interesting thing. Unlike in 8th edition, a unit with a wider fighting rank than its opponent can still attack with every model in that rank. They just lap around. So this, coupled with the marching column that we've had previously, this is very interesting because this allows us to really want to move our units and change positions. So to have combat readiness, you're going to get more people engaged in combat if you've got a really wide unit, but if you're going to do that, you're then going to risk your rank bonus later on, as having depth of rank is always important for staying in the fight at the end. That extra bonus can turn the tide sometimes. So I like that, though. I do like that horde armies certainly are going to be pushing wide, whereas tougher, smaller armies are going to be keeping it chunky and keeping it together so that they can maintain their formation should things go bad. It states here, some models may make supporting attacks from a deeper rank. Multiple units can be engaged in the same combat. It all gets a little bit complicated at times. And certain models that are able to fight without being in base contact may only make 1 attack per turn. So you'd assume your front rank gets the full complement of attacks. Say you've got your spears or your pikes in ranks further back, they may get to contribute with 1. But once you've worked out who can fight, and anyone who's watched my previous videos on this will be following my eagerness to see this back, it is time to determine who goes first using the initiative characteristic. My goodness me. It still to this day baffles me that initiative is gone from 40k. There's no initiative. A Necron warrior has as much chance as fighting first as a Space Marine as an Elder. What is going on there? It makes no sense to me. This is better. Faster units get to fight first. Elves get to go before humans, get to go before orcs, and so it should be. Obviously charging and stuff changes that up a little bit, but no, it should be that the more swift and nimble units get to get their stabs in first. It doesn't always mean it's going to work out for them, but it means they get a go, and I think that is so important. I'm so glad to see it back. Another stat which is back is weapon skill. None of this 2+, 3+. No, you get a value and you consult this chart. This chart, which is very, very similar to 8th edition, except at the bottom we now have a whole corner of 2+, whereas in 8th I don't think it got better than a 3+, so that's nice to see, because really there should be something for you. If you are weapon skill 10 going at something that is even weapon skill 4, you know, you're going to be hitting. You're so good with whatever weapon you are using, you are going to hit far more than you are going to miss, and so that's important. But it's nice. Look, it's a beautiful chart. It's just and lovely little bit of jousting going on at the bottom there, but it's so good to see it back. It's so good to see that we've got proper comparable stats. And I know people are going to be, oh, you're going to have to look up the table. Well, it seems quite simple to me as it stands right now. It's always, matching skills are always going to be a 4+. It goes diagonally down the thing and it's always 4+. If then it is ever so slightly either way, then it's pretty much always going to still be a 4+. But once you start getting to disparate levels of skill, then you're going to find it much harder at a 5+ or much easier at a 2 or a 3+, and it's just really nice to see. I love it. I love seeing these things back. Confirming we've got attacks characteristics there as well. You roll as many dice as your engaged models have attacks, and higher initiative models strike first. A charging unit has the opportunity to overwhelm its enemies before they have the wit to swing back, because obviously I assume charges still go first. And then you roll to wound and make armor saves as normal, and I suspect we'll see a very familiar to wound table, something very similar to the archery shooting table we saw previously. Casualties are removed from the back as they just fill the gaps and then move forwards into the front, so that's nice and easy. Keep them to one side. You're going to need to do the combat result next, which again is something that is lovely to see. And this is great because obviously you've still got the combat result table. You've still got unsafe wounds inflicted plus rank bonus at 1 per rank, standard, battle standard, flank attack, rear attack, high ground, overkill, lots and lots of things that affect your outcome score, which at the end of the day determines who wins this combat. But unlike previous editions where that's it, you lose, you are failing your break test potentially and you're off, you're done, and they're going to chase you and possibly bring you down. Not so this time. This time there are 3 possible solutions. So there's an excellent example here. After combat has been resolved, a unit of high elf swordmasters has lost to the stone trolls that they were fighting, and they have lost by 3 points. So their leadership is 8. They lose by 3. So you roll a 2 dice on your leadership check. You need to get below the modified result in order to have the least worst effect here. So as you can see, you've got leadership 8 minus 3 is 5. So on 2 dice you can roll a 2, 3, 4 or 5. If so, you will give ground, at which point you will retreat some. They will follow up and combat will continue. If then, that is a modified roll equal to or lower than the leadership. So modified roll, meaning that the leadership becomes 5, that's your window. If you roll, a modified roll is higher than the leadership, but it is still up to then 8, their actual leadership, then they'll fall back in good order, which means they're not broken and maintaining their rank. They're kind of reversing as fast as they can back while also preparing to receive another charge. At this point, if the opponent decides to pursue, then what happens is they will charge on you. The unit won't be wiped out, and it's only if you roll your 2 dice and you roll high, and you roll higher than the natural leadership. So that leadership of 8, if you roll higher than that on 2 dice, then so 9, 10, 11 or 12, you roll one of those, then the unit is broken and it flees, and that's where the classic Warhammer rules will come in. And if they are caught by their opponent, then they are gonna be wiped out. And that's great. That has been borrowed, I think, from probably 2nd edition Warhammer Ancient Battles, and it's good to see all these disparate parts of it being brought together into this cohesive whole of really good combat rules. And I'm just very excited to have a few goes at this, because it's entirely possible, especially with the panic that can spread through your ranks. If you see your unit running and everyone within 12 inches takes a leadership test to see if they want to run, that can decimate, especially a low leadership army, that can decimate it, and then the game can be just ruined almost there and then. Whereas with this, you're going to get an ebb and flow to battle. You're going to get combat, so I'll just push you back a bit, and the next turn they manage to hold, and then they push back a bit more, and then it moves to and fro. Or perhaps they give ground in an orderly fashion, but then the next time they charge, you manage to bring some units into the side to help out. It's not just like they're going to lose a unit. The knights are going to run them down and wipe them out, and all of your units are going to panic and half of them are going to bugger off. It's much better. It means that battle stages are going to be crucial and much more tactical than ever they were. This is no longer a case of get your best unit in there, hit their biggest, weakest unit, kill as many as you can and watch them flee and watch the ranks fall apart. You're going to have to commit in exactly the right place. You're going to have to think about having reserves. If you're in a second round of combat and this unit is stubborn and then they get some reserves, and how are you going to get a unit in to help your unit that may suddenly become bogged down because as it's followed into this orderly retreat, a unit has flanked them? You're going to have to think much more about how on earth you're going to orchestrate a battle, not just a series of individual combats, and that is glorious. Speaking about pursuit, this next section, when you win a combat you have a range of choices depending on how the enemy reacts. In order to avoid pursuit, you have to pass a leadership test, because otherwise everyone just wants to go and wipe out those people who are fleeing. It's too tempting. If the unit gave ground, you can follow up and then re-enter combat. If you do not restrain yourself and and you want to just keep the pressure on them, you can just follow up into it. It's not a charge by the looks. It doesn't suggest a charge. It suggests that it is just continuing the combat a few inches further into the opponent's territory. And then the final one is classic, it's pursue. But when a unit flees or falls back, if you catch a fleeing unit, as always, it's cut down and destroyed, gone, finished. But if you catch one falling back, combat starts again and you count as charging, and this is it. This is the joy. It's magnificent. I really like it, and whoever is putting this together is really thinking about this and is really thinking about how to make it a strategic game, and is bringing all the good bits at the moment from various, not just previous editions of Warhammer, but previous spin-offs like Ancient Battles, and I think that's just really clever, really good. And I know a lot of people are talking negative about things at times, and you know what? I'm just happy for it to be back, and I'm happy to see that these rules are very familiar, a little bit different and a little bit more strategic and a little bit more tactical, and that is going to be so much fun to play. And I think the choice of your army and your makeup is going to be more important than it ever was before. What do we have here? So here's the final option. If the victor of combat has completely wiped out the unit in combat, then it gets to make a full move directly forward. And if you end up in combat with someone else, that is a fresh charge. So, heavy cavalry, clever use of overruns there. Heavy cavalry charging an already engaged unit and finishing it off. You can almost, it's like dominoes, you can just go and knock them down, or drafts, you can just hop and work your way through a battlefield, just taking out unit after unit after unit and keeping that momentum. But again, it's pretty hard to wipe a unit out in one shot, so you're going to want to back them up, you're going to want to wear them down a bit with your artillery fire and your missile fire first. Then you're going to want to maybe charge with you, if it's a small unit, charge with your heavy cavalry, wipe them out in one and go on. Maybe you're going to want to engage them first and then flank them and then see what you can do from there. And it's just lovely. I'm very excited for this, and it's making me want to consider a heavy cavalry army at this point. So I've mentioned on a Facebook group that I'm currently printing out a Skaven Force to just use. Excuse me. Printing a Skaven Force out to use at the moment, but once it's released, I'm going to start collecting in earnest and pick up some GW models. And I'm stuck between High Elves, who are always my first love, Dwarves, and Wood Elves. But with the heavy cavalry side of things, I'm leaning towards High Elves at the moment, I must say. Tempting as that is, and it's, you know, they've got the great range, and they're clearly loved by Games Workshop, but these rules certainly make me want to wield some heavy cavalry. A little bit about magic here. Assailment spells. So this is quite cool. Different options here, battle magic and dark magic. So we've got a hammer hand and a soul eater. Again, casting value 7+, I assume 2d6. And you've got two different options here. Hammer hand is just the big fist, smash, smash, smash. 2d3 strength 4 hits with an AP of -2. That will be pretty impressive against most units, to be honest. That's going to do a decent amount of damage. And again, 2d3 strength 4, no rolling to hit. That's great. Soul Eater, on the other hand, a little bit different. So again, casting value 7+, combat, so you've got to be in combat, but you pick a single enemy model that the caster is engaged in combat with, and it suffers a single strength 3 hit, and we've looked on the hit table, that's still possible to wound even the tough stuff. And then it does multiple wounds 3 special rule, which we don't know much about, but I assume the 1 hit does 3 wounds, so it was like a damage value in 40k. And no armor save permitted, so armor's gone, but ward and regeneration saves can be attempted as normal. So you've got 1 there, which is great hammer hand for battering against a unit, and you've got Soul Eater, which is great for taking on a hero. So, but that's it. It's a slightly shorter one this week because I think we're going to get the second part of the combat phase next week, and we'll have to see a bit more about that, but it's certainly lots to go on, and it sounds like the original stat line is coming back in all its glory. Now initiative has been concerned, and we've got weapon skill, ballistic skill. Can't imagine strength and toughness and wounds aren't going to be there. In fact, they've mentioned wounds, they're in. So yeah, it's just really exciting, and it's so strategic, and I cannot wait to have a game. So in the meantime, please do like and subscribe, and share it with your friends, and if you want to know more or you have opinions on this that differ from my own, leave them in the comments down below. We'll be happy to chat to you and see where we end up and what debate we can have. So yeah, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Check the Etsy link below in the description, by the way. We've got some interesting merch out at the moment, and you know, it'd be really nice to see you wearing one of our hoodies one day. But in the meantime, take care. We'll see you soon.